Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Lily Winters had spent weeks trying to convince herself that silence was the best option, but every sleepless night and every guilty glance in the mirror reminded her that she was protecting a lie too big to bury. The accident had changed everything, lives were destroyed, families shattered, and the man she loved was walking around with a secret heavy enough to crush what was left of his soul. For too long, Cain Ashby had been hiding the truth, convincing himself that his actions were for the greater good. But the guilt had seeped into their marriage like poison, eroding trust, intimacy, and peace until there was nothing left but tension and regret. And now, as Lily stood in the dimly lit hallway outside crimson lights, her heart pounding like a drum, she knew there was no turning back. The truth about that night, the accident that had left Nick Newman's world in pieces, had to come out, no matter who it destroyed. It all began on a stormy night months ago, a night that Cain had begged Lily to forget. Nick Newman had been returning home from a late-night meeting with Victor, angry and distracted, his thoughts spinning with family drama and business betrayals. At the same time, Cain had been drinking, not much, but enough to dull his reflexes, after another argument with Lily about trust and honesty. He hadn't meant to get behind the wheel, but he did. The rain was pounding, the road slick, visibility low. And then it happened, a sudden blur, a screech of tires, and the sickening thud that would haunt him forever. The other car had spun off the road, crashing into a guardrail before tumbling down the small embankment. Cain had panicked. When he got out, he saw that the driver was none other than Nick's sister, Abby Newman, who had been driving Nick's car after borrowing it to visit Sharon. She had been unconscious, blood trickling from her forehead, but still breathing. Cain had called 911 anonymously and fled before the police arrived. When the news broke that Abby had been found injured after a hit-and-run, Cain had nearly collapsed. Lily remembered the terror in his eyes when he told her the truth later that night, how his hands shook, how his voice cracked, how he begged her to keep quiet just until things settled down. He said the police had no leads, that coming forward now would ruin their family, his job, and everything they had rebuilt. Lily, torn between love and morality, reluctantly agreed to keep his secret. But now, after seeing what that silence had done to Nick and his family, she could no longer live with herself. Nick had been blaming himself for weeks, believing that Abby's accident happened because of him, because of the stress he'd caused, because of a business fight that had made her drive out that night. His heartbreak was raw, visible to everyone around him. Watching him at society one evening, his eyes hollow, his voice cracking as he told Sharon he couldn't keep living with the guilt, something inside Lily broke. She knew what Cain had done. She knew that Nick's pain was rooted in a lie she was helping keep alive. That was the moment she decided she couldn't protect Cain anymore. When Lily confronted Cain in their apartment later that night, the storm outside was eerily similar to the one from that tragic evening. Rain lashed against the windows, and the tension between them felt electric. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "I can't keep lying to people who trust us. You hit Abby, Cain. You hurt Nick's family. And you've been pretending it never happened." Cain's face went pale, his jaw tightening as he tried to compose himself. "Lily, we've been through this. It was an accident. I didn't mean for any of it to happen." But his voice wavered, betraying the guilt that had consumed him. Lily shook her head, her voice trembling but firm. "You don't get to decide who deserves the truth. Nick has been torturing himself, thinking it's his fault. Abby almost died. And we sit here pretending it's okay? It's not okay, Cain. It never will be." The fight that followed was one of the most painful moments of their marriage. Cain begged her to stay silent, arguing that confessing now would destroy not just him but the entire Winters family by association. He accused her of betraying him, of trying to punish him for mistakes he already regretted. But Lily had made up her mind. She packed her things and left that night, unable to bear the weight of the secret anymore. As she drove through the storm toward Newman Enterprises, she replayed every lie she had told to protect Kane, every time she'd looked into Nick's tearful eyes and said nothing. Her conscience screamed louder than her fear. When Lily arrived at Nick's office the next morning, her hands were trembling. Nick was sitting at his desk, staring at a picture of Abby and their family, the grief still etched into every line of his face. "Lily," he said softly, surprised to see her. "What brings you here?" She hesitated for a long moment, knowing that the words she was about to speak would change everything. "Nick," she began, her voice shaking, "there's something you need to know. Something about the night of Abby's accident." Nick's brow furrowed as he set down his coffee. "What are you talking about?" Lily took a deep breath, tears brimming in her eyes. "It wasn't random. It wasn't a stranger. The person who hit Abby, it was Kane." The silence that followed was deafening. Nick froze, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief and finally to rage. "What?" he whispered, standing abruptly. "You're telling me Kane hit my sister, and you both covered it up?" Lily nodded, her voice breaking. "He panicked, Nick. He didn't mean to hurt her. He called 911, but he left before the police arrived. He told me everything that night, and I didn't know what to do. I thought I was protecting my family. But I can't live with the guilt anymore. I'm so sorry." Nick's fists clenched at his sides, his eyes darkening with fury and betrayal. "You both let me think I was the reason Abby was in that hospital. You let my family suffer while you went home to your life?" Lily sobbed, trying to explain, but Nick turned away, his chest heaving. The heartbreak on his face was unbearable. "Do you have any idea what that night did to us?" he shouted. "I blamed myself. My father blamed me. Abby's recovery has been slow and painful, and now I find out it was your husband who did this?" He slammed his hand against the desk, his composure breaking. "I trusted you, Lily. You were supposed to be better than this." Lily's tears fell freely. "You're right. I should have told you. I should have made him confess. I can't take back what we did, but you deserve the truth." For a long time, Nick said nothing. He walked to the window, staring out at the city that had betrayed him too many times. "I thought I'd lost everything when Abby was hurt," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now I realize I didn't just lose her peace, I lost my faith in people I care about." He turned back to Lily, his eyes filled with devastation. "Tell Kane I'm coming for him. He's not walking away from this." Lily left the office in tears, her heart shattering. She knew that whatever happened next, she had just set in motion a chain of events that would destroy the fragile balance between families in Genoa City. And she was right. Within hours, the news began to spread. Sharon, overhearing Nick's furious conversation with Victoria, was stunned. She had always believed Kane was a man trying to rebuild his life, not one capable of a crime that nearly cost Abby hers. Devon, meanwhile, was torn between loyalty to his sister and his growing disgust at what Kane had done. "You should have told me, Lily," Devon said when she confessed everything to him that evening. "You put everything we built at risk. Our company, our name, everything." Kane, learning that Lily had told Nick, showed up at their house desperate and angry. "How could you do this to us?" he shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "You've ruined my life." Lily faced him with red-rimmed eyes. "No, Kane. You ruined it the moment you drove away that night." He tried to plead with her, swearing he'd turn himself in, but it was too late, the damage was done. Meanwhile, Nick's heartbreak deepened into something darker. Abby, though still recovering, insisted she didn't want vengeance. But Nick couldn't let it go. "He lied to us," Nick told Sharon one night at Crimson Lights. "He let us grieve, he let me carry guilt that wasn't mine. I can't forgive that." Sharon, ever the voice of reason, tried to calm him. "You've been through enough, Nick. Don't let anger destroy you the way guilt did." But Nick's eyes were cold. "This isn't about revenge, Sharon. It's about justice." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Kane turned himself in to the police, confessing to the hit and run, confirming every painful detail Lily had revealed. The public fallout was brutal. Chancellor Winters faced scrutiny, the Newman family demanded justice, and Lily was torn apart by guilt and sorrow. Devon tried to stand by her, but even he couldn't hide his disappointment. When the dust began to settle, Nick found himself alone again, sitting at the bar at Society, staring into his drink. The truth had brought him no comfort. Abby was healing, yes, but the betrayal had left a scar that wouldn't fade. Sharon approached him quietly, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You did what you had to do," she said softly. Nick looked up, his eyes weary. "Yeah," he whispered. "But it still feels like I lost more than I gained." Across town, Lily sat alone in her dark apartment, the sound of rain tapping softly against the window. She had done the right thing, she knew that. But the cost was unbearable. Her marriage was broken, her reputation in ruins, and her heart hollow. Yet, beneath the pain, there was a strange sense of peace. For the first time in months, she could breathe. The secret was no longer hers to keep. Kane, facing the reality of his actions, wrote Lily a letter from his holding cell, an apology that came too late. He admitted that hiding the truth had been the greatest mistake of his life and that Lily had been brave to do what he couldn't. But for Lily and Nick, the damage was irreversible. Two families had been torn apart by one night of weakness, one lie too many, and one secret that refused to stay buried. In the end, Lily's courage to expose the truth didn't just reveal Kane's sin, it exposed the fragile, aching humanity in everyone involved. Nick's heartbreak would fade with time, but the scars of betrayal would linger. And as the storm outside finally cleared, both Lily and Nick were left with the same haunting realization: sometimes the truth doesn't set you free, it just shows you how much you've already lost. Lily Winters sat in her darkened apartment, the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest like a physical force. Every tick of the clock echoed through the silence, a reminder that the truth she had unleashed could not be contained again. The secret that had lived in the shadows for months had finally clawed its way into the light, and the aftermath was every bit as destructive as she had feared. Genoa City was buzzing. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone was talking. And Lily, despite her moral victory, felt like the loneliest woman in the world. Kane's arrest had rocked the city. The mugshot had been plastered across online headlines within hours, and the comments were vicious. Words like coward, liar, and monster appeared beneath every photo of him being escorted into the courthouse in handcuffs. Lily tried not to look, but it was impossible to avoid. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing, calls from reporters, from friends, from people she hadn't heard from in years, all demanding to know why she'd hidden something so serious. Even Devon, who had tried to remain diplomatic, couldn't hide his disappointment when they met in his office. "You're my sister," he told her, pacing as he ran his hands through his hair. "You know I love you, but you have to understand, you didn't just cover up a crime. You lied to everyone who trusted you. The board wants answers, Lily. Our reputation is on the line." Lily had no defense left. She simply nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I know," she whispered. "I'll step back if that's what it takes. I just couldn't live with it anymore, Devon. Watching Nick suffer, watching Abby struggle, it was killing me." Devon sighed heavily. "You did what you thought was right. But sometimes doing the right thing destroys everything else." His words lingered in her mind long after she left. Meanwhile, Nick Newman was spiraling. The revelation that Kane had been responsible for Abby's accident hit him harder than anyone could have predicted. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus. He'd spent months living with guilt, believing he had somehow caused the crash indirectly, and now, to learn that it was the carelessness of someone he'd considered a friend? It shattered something inside him. He'd gone to see Kane once after the arrest, but the confrontation was brutal. "Do you even understand what you did?" Nick demanded through the glass in the visitation room. Kane, looking gaunt and exhausted, met his eyes with shame. "Nick, I can't say anything that'll make this right," Kane said quietly. "I've gone over that night in my head 1,000 times. I wish I'd stayed, I wish I'd come clean. But I panicked. I didn't want to lose my family. I made the worst mistake of my life. Nick's voice cracked with anger. You didn't just make a mistake, Kane. You broke lives. You let my family suffer while you went home to yours. Abby nearly died, and you let us believe it was fate. His hands balled into fists, his face tight with rage. You're lucky she's alive, because if she hadn't made it, I swear to you, there wouldn't be a prison strong enough to keep me from finding you. Kane's eyes filled with tears. I know, he whispered. I know I deserve whatever comes next. The silence that followed was deafening. Nick finally stood, shaking his head. You don't deserve Lily, he said coldly. You don't deserve forgiveness. You had one chance to do the right thing, and you threw it away. Without another word, he walked out, leaving Kane alone with his guilt. Outside, Nick found Sharon waiting for him in the parking lot. She could tell from his expression that the encounter had gone badly. How did it go? She asked softly. Nick exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. I thought hearing him admit it would help. It didn't. It just made it worse. Sharon reached out, touching his arm gently. You've carried so much pain, Nick. Maybe now you can start letting it go. Nick looked at her with weary eyes. How do I let go of something that keeps coming back to destroy me? Sharon had no answer. She simply pulled him into a hug, hoping that, for once, he'd let someone else carry the weight with him. Back at the police station, Lily showed up to see Kane one last time before his hearing. Her heart raced as she walked down the corridor, her heels echoing on the cold tile floor. When she saw him through the glass, her breath caught in her throat. He looked smaller somehow, defeated. But when their eyes met, the old familiarity stirred something painful between them. Lily, Kane said, his voice hoarse. You shouldn't be here. I had to come, she replied softly. I needed you to know I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it because I couldn't carry it anymore. I couldn't watch what this lie was doing to us. Kane's eyes glistened with emotion. I know that now. I just wish you'd given me a chance to make it right myself. You had that chance, Lily whispered. Every day since that night, you had that chance. For a long moment, they said nothing. Finally, Kane reached for the phone, pressing it to his ear as tears welled in his eyes. Do you still love me? He asked, his voice trembling. Lily hesitated, her own tears falling freely. I'll always love you, she said honestly. But love isn't enough to fix what you broke. Maybe one day, after you've faced everything, you'll forgive yourself. Until then, we both have to let go. She hung up the phone, turned away, and walked out before her heart could convince her to stay. As news of Kane's confession spread, Genoa City was divided. Some felt sympathy, that he was a man who made a tragic mistake. Others wanted him to pay to the fullest extent of the law. Abby, who had been quiet through most of it, finally spoke publicly during a press conference at Newman Enterprises. Standing beside her brother and father, she addressed the cameras with calm grace. I don't hate Kane, she said. He made a terrible choice. But I've learned that hate doesn't heal anything. I'm focusing on recovery, not revenge. Victor Newman, however, was less forgiving. This man thought he could harm my family and hide behind cowardice, Victor growled afterward. He's going to learn what real accountability feels like. Nick, though appreciative of Abby's peace, couldn't find that same forgiveness. Every time he saw Lily, he was reminded of betrayal. When he ran into her at Crimson Lights weeks later, the tension was thick. Lily approached him hesitantly, clutching her cup of coffee like a lifeline. Nick, she said quietly, I just wanted to say. I know sorry isn't enough. But I am sorry. Nick looked at her, his expression unreadable. I know you are, he said flatly. And I know why you did it. But that doesn't erase what it cost us. My family, my peace of mind, I'll never get those months back. Lily nodded, tears welling up again. I understand. She turned to leave, but Nick called after her. "For what it's worth," he said softly, "you did the right thing in the end. It's just a shame it came too late." His words cut deep, but there was truth in them. Lily managed a small, sad smile before walking away, realizing that doing the right thing often meant losing everything else you love. As the weeks passed, Kane's court case drew near. Lily was subpoenaed to testify, which reopened every wound she'd tried to close. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing, reporters lined the benches, the Newmans filled one side, and Chancellor Winter's employees watched anxiously from the back. When the judge asked Kane to describe what happened that night, the room fell silent. "It was raining," he began, his voice trembling. "I shouldn't have been driving. I'd had a few drinks, and I was angry. I didn't see the car until it was too late. I hit it, stopped, and when I saw who it was, I panicked. I called for help but left before anyone arrived. I told myself I'd come forward eventually, but I kept lying, to my wife, my family, to myself. I'm sorry. To Abby, to the Newmans, to Lily, I'm sorry." The room was silent when he finished. Lily, sitting in the witness box, couldn't stop crying. Nick's face remained hard, but there was a flicker of something softer in his eyes, maybe not forgiveness, but understanding.